originally settled as a mining camp in the winter of 1865-66. A group of miners were headed up to the Sun River country. There was a big rumor of a big find up there, and a lot of miners were killed in that event because the winter was so bad getting up to there. And some of those miners, four of those miners that were up there, they decided to give up on the gold up there and headed down over here into the Belt Mountains, and they were trying to look for gold, of course, but they were also hunting and trying to get game to sell to the mining camps down like at Diamond City and Confederate Gulch. And one of the places they stopped here was where York is now, and it's a disjunction of what we call York Gulch or Black Bear Road and Trout Creek. And they panned there and discovered gold, and boom, instant gold boom town. And so they called the original settlement New York City. And it boomed really fast. In fact, that the other side of the creek they called Brooklyn. And then farther up York Gulch, about a mile up York Gulch, there was another settlement they called Ruby City. And then another 2 miles up from that, there was another settlement called Yuba City. So just like any of the boom towns around here, it boomed really fast. From the research I've done, I would say it was between 2,500 and 3,500 at its peak. And then Diamond City was probably about 3,500 to 4,500 at its peak. So these are the two main mining camps on this side of the river. And at that time, this was Marr County, not Lewis and Clark. The mining boom lasted probably for about 5 years. By 1870, the mines had played out, and most of the people left for other more productive diggings elsewhere. But the town never really died. It just kind of ebbed and flowed. There was another slight boom in the early 1880s, and then another one in the late 1890s, another one in the 20s and 30s, and then after World War II, the town became basically a bedroom community a retirement and bedroom community for Helena. The cemetery, there's graves up in the cemetery that date to the 1860s, earliest days. There's some graves that are outside the cemetery. So what we believe, there's no official thing on this, is that people were probably just buried in nice locations or possibly where they died or whatever. And then eventually, about 1880s, it coalesced into one location. And so all the burials were done in one location from that point on. But some of the earliest burials, there's some graves over off Jimtown and some graves, various graves on the hill behind us that aren't in this, what we call the cemetery proper. In fact, the earliest grave for York that we know of that's still readable is not in the cemetery proper. But they did it up there most likely because down here they were mining, and they didn't want to have to dig the bodies up to mine underneath them later. So they put them someplace where they are out of the way. Plus, it's human instinct to bury the dead where it's scenic usually. There's a view, there's a river, there's something usually. It's not uncommon to see cemeteries in beautiful locations. Yeah. Or up there you have a nice view of the valley. Sad stories. There's a woman up there that was probably married less than a year, and she's buried up there. Because we found her marriage certificate and her marriage, and then like 6 months later, she's buried in the cemetery up there. So there's a lot of that. I'm sure there's a lot of that was really common. The oldest grave up there, what's called the Marshall grave, they were probably some of the most famous people at the time when they were here because they're involved in a lot of the properties. They're involved in mining, they're involved in milling, they're involved in lumbering. And so they must have been a very prominent family. And the stone is very beautiful. It's simple, but it's a slab of wood where they've actually, instead of etched in the name, they reliefed everything else around it and left the name standing out, so everything's cut back. And so that's why it's still readable to this day, is because the lettering stands out from the rest of the grave.
We moved up here about 23 years ago. We wanted a place out of town, quiet, and we sure got that. 10 o'clock, this place is quiet. If you want to be involved in the community services that are around us, the volunteer groups, various volunteer groups, you can do it. If you want to just go to work and come home, that's that way too. People won't bother you. Somebody nominated me, and then they unanimously voted for me to be chief, and it can be if you want it, you can be a full-time job. It really can. Our primary duty and responsibility is structure protection during wildfires. It's quite a job to keep everything running. Some of our equipment's pretty old. We got a program going where we're continually making sure stuff works. We do a lot of that during training. We train twice a month, normally 2 to 3 hours each session. So it's over probably around 48 hours of local department training, in addition to courses and training offered by the Forest Service and DNRC. We always need volunteers. We're always needing firefighters. We need younger firefighters. The average age on our department's probably mid-40s. Some of us are a little older. Only thing I can say is support your volunteer departments, because they're doing it for nothing. They're doing it just for the sole purpose of helping the community and try to make a safer place for them people to live.
It's the only business in York. Community hall, fire hall, it's the only other public structure. Well, it already had the reputation for the burgers. So it started way before me. And we've just tried to maintain it, you know, and it's just pretty much just maintaining the quality and how they're cooked and keeping things the same, not trying to change anything. Last week we had a group in here from New Zealand. The week before that we had a group from England. There's a group riding around the country from Germany on motorcycles that have been coming by on and off all summer. So we get people from all over the world, let alone, you know, just Montana or the Northwest. Fortunately, the AAA magazine found out about us, and they helped us out a lot with that because they had kind of advertised for us a little bit. We're open year-round, except for maybe 2 weeks in December when we try to take a vacation or we end up remodeling. Depends on which is more important at the time. And I met my wife here, so she's a native from Helena, so we'll probably never leave.
We try to keep it family oriented and just keep doing what it's been famous for so long. He will tell you that I don't cook as good at home, but I can cook the burgers well up here.
York, you know, you look at like Diamond City boomed and it's gone. Bannock has boomed, it's gone. But there's something about York, it never quite died. It always came back. And it's amazing that all these families up here, and the families that we see that come back, you know, that tell us they have family history, 100 years later, they still talked about York in these glowing memories. And I think whatever it is about York, you know, sure, there's arguments and fights and all that, just like any small town, but I think there's something that binds all the people together, even over 100 years that haven't been here for that long. It was just amazing. They had some of the same feelings that when you talk to people here in York that they have about it. It's not just, you know, the county comes up and has meetings up here sometimes, and I remember one county planner called this just another bedroom community, and I stood up and said, this is not just a normal bedroom community, it's a town. It has its own identity. It's not like those subdivisions that popped up in the valley. You know, I think Marysville probably has the same identity. Marysville has survived to this day, and there's families in Marysville who have been there for 100 years too, and I think it has that same affinity too, and probably Canyon Creek as well.
We'll be here when you're ready to come up and have a good burger and cold beer.